Alright, hey guys, I am live. So, today I wanted to start with just a guide on Protoss vs. Terran. I coached a student yesterday, and so I figured, I've done a PvP guide, which is the SOS build, which is really safe. So I decided I'll do a PvT guide as well, and then I'll probably end up doing a PvZ guide down the road as well. So what I wanted to talk about first is what is PvT, and then I want to talk about the stagnation of a matchup and how PvT has sort of stagnated now. And I talked with my friend about this yesterday. He thinks it's really bad. I don't think it's as bad as it is, but there definitely is a stagnation within PvT that there isn't in other matchups. Then I want to talk about all-ins, Protoss all-ins, and like we will have previously discussed, Terran all-ins in the stagnation part of this guide. And then finally I want to talk about second to last, I want to talk about 3 different styles of Protoss play in this matchup. How Colossus count determines sort of what style you're playing, and then what Twilight upgrade you're going to get. And then finally, after that, I want to do a guide which will focus primarily on a 3 Colossus build, which I personally find at like a high Masters level it feels riskier. And I know pros do it, but we watched Bomber just completely dismantle every person who did it in WCS. So with SEV pulls. So we'll also talk about SEV pulls when we discuss all-ins. So I'm going to write that down. I forgot to put that there. So let's first talk about the matchup, Protoss vs. Terran, and how the matchup really works. The matchup is not necessarily based on strategy. The matchup is more based on tactics and on mechanics. Like, how do you get drops into the other guy's base? How well can you micro Templar against ghosts and split your army so it doesn't all get EMP'd, or split your army so it all doesn't get stormed? And how well can you control your Vikings to snipe as many Colossus as possible before the battle? Can you snipe observers always consistently so that the Protoss doesn't have as much map vision? Can you get observers everywhere on the map so that you always know where the Terran is coming from? Can you proxy pylons and warp in zealots to harass their mineral lines? Can they drop you in multiple locations all at once to kill probes, to force your mothership core out of position, to force your army out of position, hopefully snipe a nexus? So I think that it's much more tactics-based and much more mechanics-based. Can you move fast enough to do all those different things? Whereas, in pretty much every game, you're going to have to do those things. Whereas in other matchups, like Protoss vs. Zerg, it's much more like, can you scout them properly and react to their tech? And so there's another strategical factor in, whereas with Protoss vs. Terran, almost always, you're going to just play versus bio. And they're going to make Marine Marauder with Medivacs and attack you, and then later on they'll add in Vikings or Ghost, and then they'll add in whichever one of those they didn't add in already for their final army. So that's sort of the way I see Protoss vs. Terran. Personally, it's my favorite matchup. I like it because it's all about mechanics. I really enjoy the mechanical aspect of the game. I really like just sitting down in the morning and running through each one of my builds and doing it perfectly and hitting all the timings, getting all the pylons, things like that. That's where I find enjoyment in the game. Trying to play the perfect game. And it's hard to play the perfect game when it's a matchup like PvP and you just accidentally miss by 1 hex a pylon or something on the map, and then you lose because of that. So I like PvT. I think it's a really fun matchup to play. It's really fun when you have really good mechanics and you can drop in a bunch of locations and control the pace of the game. Obviously, I am a Protoss player, and I know that Terran players really don't like this matchup and find it really challenging. But it's really challenging for Protoss as well, so yeah. I want to discuss stagnation next. Just tuned in. What type of frequency is blank? You get blink at 8 minutes. It's delayed. It's the delayed blink, and then you just defend drops with it. I'm just like, usually the styles of play that I'm going to be doing guides are like the safest styles. They're not like, I don't know, I find aggressive blink to be, this is a little segue, but I find a bit aggressive blink to be slightly risky. Like, I know you can blink out, but you sometimes lose too many stalkers and then you just die. So it's like more like 6 stalker defensive blink, get Colossus, get a third, that style. So yeah, I want to discuss stagnation. Stagnation in the matchup is like a big problem because Terrans feel like they have no all-ins. It's like they can 2-racks, but if the Protoss just scouts with a probe after their gateway, then the 2-racks doesn't work, so it's a huge coin flip. It's like, do I base the whole game on the fact that I think he's not going to probe scout? They can also do things like 6-racks, but again, if you scout it, it's very easy to hold off. The 1-1-1 doesn't really work, like it doesn't work anymore because we have the Mothership Core and that's really good. Basically, Protoss has, the Mothership Core shuts down almost every all-in that the Terran can possibly throw at Protoss. So what happens is that the all-in timing for Terran gets pushed back, and it says, okay, if you want to all-in as Terran, you're going to have to all-in between 11 minutes and 15 minutes. Because that's when you can take all your SUVs from your bases and bring them over across the map and use those to try and kill a Protoss that was either too greedy or didn't tech to storm. So that's sort of what's happened in the matchup. It's sort of stagnated, right? And we've also found that, like everyone, there's always that thread on Team Liquid, like, is Mech actually worse than Bio? Yes, Mech is actually worse than Bio. And we've found that through just many games of playing, people trying out Mech, and it never really seems to work out. Like, I know personally when I play against Mech that it's like, I feel like I've just been given a free win. Like, I see that he built a second factory and I'm like, aha, okay, great. Even if they're doing some kind of timing now, like, my friend, he is a really good player, and for a long time he'd do a Mech timing against me, and I could never stop it. But now, I find his push even very easy to stop. So, I think that Bio is definitely the better way to go, and that Mech is not really an option. I guess if you can like finally get to late game without taking too much damage as Mech, like it's fine, because Ravens and Ghosts and Thors are pretty good. But like, usually Protoss will have such an economy that they can just throw wave after wave at you, and then eventually you're still going to fold. So, Bio, and you only have an all-in timing from 11 to 15 minutes. And other than that, it's the same composition, the same micro, the same style of drop play every game. So that's how the matchup has stagnated. So now let's talk about, this is I think why a lot of Terrans feel that the matchup is a little bit unfair, or very unfair, is because Protoss still has lots of viable options for all-ins. Blink all-in is basically the only one base all-in now that is still really good. Like, people figured out Oracle play, like it was the new thing at the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, and MC's Oracle Rush with like 5 Oracles, kills all the Marines in the bunker. That kind of thing doesn't really work anymore. Like, Terrans are smarter than that, and we don't see it anymore. But we still see Blink all-ins, like Hello Kitty is just like Mr. Blink all-in. If you want to learn a Blink all-in, go watch Hello Kitty's games. He has a replay pack on Team Liquid. You should download that if you want to learn all-ins. I'm like actually serious, like his all-ins are really good. And then, like, usually I don't take all-in play very seriously. But The blink all in is very good. And on maps where you have like full surface area around the Terran's base, it can feel almost impossible to stop. Like Star Station. It can actually Terran hold if the Protoss does a blink all in on Star Station. Because there's so much space that they have to cover with bunkers to stop the blink all in. You can just like get into the base and then walk around to the natural and then go back in the main base and then send the Mothership Core, because there's a lot of space behind the main base. You can send the Mothership Core around the back of the base and start sniping SCVs and then blink in at a different location. So it's really hard to control a blink all in on a map like that. And it feels like it's broken because the Protoss just jumps in, like blinks in on top of the tank and snipes it, backs out, snipes some SCVs, makes you pull SCVs, snipes more SCVs, and slowly but surely the Terran dies. There's also like a lot of Archon Zealot all-ins, Archon Zealot with Storm all-in, there's an Immortal bust, and all those things still work, but I don't know if they work really well at the highest level. Like we saw Rain try and use an Immortal bust against, I forget who it was, maybe it was Bomber, and he just got completely flattened. So I think that those kind of things are the things that, like, if you scout it, you're going to have a lot better chance of holding it. Xenocider on Meta, maybe a week ago, said, or 2 weeks ago now, said that he thinks that Terran actually has an advantage because they can just go 3 command center and nothing can punish that. You build 3 bunkers and it holds pretty much any all-in. So I don't know if that's 100% true, because Xenocider supposedly later said that he said that on Meta, and then everyone all-ins him on ladder, but he never goes 3 CC, so he always holds. So it's like, it's the kind of thing like, does 3 CC actually hold every all-in? I don't know. But I know that in my experience, Protoss all-ins are still very effective. Or at least more effective than anything that Terran has. So it feels sort of one-sided. Like, Protoss has all these options, but Terran has no options. But Terran does have the option of doing like a 2-base or 3-base SCV pull. But that's only one all-in, and it comes after 10 minutes. So now I'll just quickly check the chat. Proxy Robo, it's still 1 base. Yeah, there are like Oracle play and stuff, but that relies, like, those all-ins rely more on the fact that, like, Terran is bad and doesn't know what's going on. Because, like, some Terrans will, like, send 1 Marine around the map to just, like, check for Oracle stuff if they see a Protoss with 2 gases. And they'll, like, check for an expansion, and they'll, like, really know. They really will have mapped out. And, like, if they have a Reaper, they'll know what you're doing. And they'll know what you're doing around, like, 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So a lot of those all-ins, I think they work, but they don't necessarily work if the Terran knows exactly how to react anymore. They worked really well at the beginning of Heart of the Swarm, but I don't think they work as well now. So like the 3 main styles of Protoss play, this is Protoss macro play now, because my guide's going to focus on macro play. I wanted to just briefly discuss all the all-ins and how the matchup works. But now let's talk about macro play as Protoss in the matchup. You have sort of 3 different options. You have like a Colossus without range option, which is generally 1 Colossus without range into very quick charge and High Templar. And then you have 3 Colossus play, which gets range, but this one gets blink, and it has much later High Templar. And then you have just straight up Templar play, where you don't get a Robo Bay. You still get a robotics facility for observers and warp prisms, but you don't get Robo Bay to get range. So those are sort of the 3 different styles. You can also do no range Colossus and get 2 Colossus. It is a mind game, and it also makes your starting army just a little bit stronger so that you can hold things more easily. Like, it makes Terran less likely to just stim forward and snipe your first Colossus. And if you lose that first Colossus, like, the game is probably going to end. So those are the 3 main styles. The reason you get charge with Templar play is just because Blink is going to